Okay, today we're going to take a look at the Swedish model 1896 Mauser rifle. The rifle is chambered in the 6.5 by 55 millimeter round, which is pretty accurate and versatile round. These guns were used by the Swedish military up until World War II, when they were replaced by 8 millimeter bolt action rifle. The first model they adopted was an 1894 carbine, which are pretty hard to find and pretty expensive. I've never owned one, or actually I may have seen one at a gun show. Then you had the 1896 rifle, and a few of these rifles were shortened, so there's another variation called the 9638. And you can tell a 9638, the bolt handle is still straight, but it'll be the shorter rifle. Then there is the model 1938, which is a shorter barreled version of this gun. Some of them will be threaded on the end for a blank adapter. This one is not. There's a few different variations to these rifles. There are sniper versions of these guns, which are also desirable and expensive. And it's kind of funny. This rifle, along with all the other different ones, would come in on a surplus market. I remember back in the 80s when they changed the laws, and there were huge quantities of these guns brought in. Actually brought in from all over the world. There are different types, but these are out on the market, and you could get them, you can find them in pristine condition. This one here is a little bit worn. I picked it up because I needed a decent example and I didn't want to get too crazy with the money. The way it works, it's kind of interesting with all surplus guns. When they're considered obsolete, people really, generally don't look at them. There are people that collect the guns and like to shoot them. And these here, a lot of these guns, because the cartridge is accurate and it's very versatile, you can reload from a 77 grain bullet to a 160 grain bullet. So a lot of these guns were sporterized into some sort of rifle. Now another thing that makes this rifle interesting and kind of popular with the way information travels. It used to be, if you wanted to get information about one of these old guns, you had to buy a bunch of books and read the books. Now with the way information travels on the internet, smartphones, and instant communication, you get somebody writing an article about guns, and I believe what happened is I've seen several of them where people say this is the most accurate military surplus rifle around or ever made, and then all of a sudden there's a huge interest in this. And also this model is kind of interesting in a lot of other ways, is that there are stock discs on here which are, I guess they could be either one of two things, either a unit marking, or like this one gives you the bore diameter and the condition of the bore is rated 1, 2, 3. So that's kind of neat in a way, and brings interest in with people. They are an accurate gun. I've fired them. I was using Hansen ammo at the time, which is basically PPU ammo with a solid bullet. And they're very flat shooting. They're very accurate rifles. I can attest to that. I sold the gun because I couldn't hang on to everything in life, and you have to buy homes, cars, the economy gets bad, you can't hang on to the gun collection. So I ended up picking up this gun. But going back to what I said about the internet and that, once interest is piqued and everyone is like intense about getting these guns, the price goes up. And if something's in demand and the price is going up, that's where you got to beware about people trying to pull a fast one and just separate you from your money. So what I'm going to do is we'll take a look at the gun, look at the markings. It's very similar. It's a very similar action to the Mauser 1893, the Spanish gun. And there are some unique things about this. There are different types of sights. I have just the basic sight on this gun, the basic infantry weapon. These rifles were used for target shooting, and they did change the ammunition. They went from a 160 grain torpedo style bullet with a round nose, and in 1941 they went, I think it's a 140 grain spire point bullet. So some of these rifles will have different sights on there for target shooting and competition, and I've seen them with like a chart attached to the stock. And basically what I believe that is for is when you're target shooting, the chart tells you, because the rifle was sighted in with the old ammo, now you're using the new ammo, it gives you point of impact differences and that. So they are pretty interesting gun, a lot of different little variations and things on them. So what I'll do is we'll take a closer look at the rifle itself and the action, and then I'll go over the stock disc and what it means. And I also have a box of ammo. We'll take a look at some of the cartridges that go in it. Okay, here's a look at the receiver markings. The Royal Crown, 1909. So this rifle's been around a while. And like I said, it's your Mauser action. It's kind of like the 93. Stripper clips. Okay, straight bolt. You got your bolt release here. Uses Mauser's flush 5-shot magazine, which was all innovative on the 1893 model. And this also cocks on closing. Okay, so now I'll show you how the gun basically operates. Alright, so like I said, it has a floor plate that'll stop it when your last round's done. And as you can see, this one also cocks on the closing. So when you close the bolt, it cocks the striker. Has a 3-position safety. So up, okay, you're safe. You can open the bolt, and all the way to the right, you're safe, and it locks the bolt. Now it has your, just like on the Mausers, you pull this back and can remove the bolt. Now this one here has a little bit of discoloration on it, but the bolt is in good shape. And all matching, all the numbers match on this particular rifle. So we'll get that back in there. So nothing special here, just like your standard Mausers, except this is one of the earlier ones that cock on the closing before we came to the 98. Another thing though, if you lock the safety when it's not cocked, it will lock the bolt in place. So that's the action, and now we'll look at the sight. This is the standard military sight, or the regular rifle sight, I guess the original style. You will find these sights like on a target gun where they have a micrometer adjustment or a Doppler sight. You will find variations to the sight because these guns were used for target shooting, I guess in competitions. Okay. And it has a standard long stock. It has one barrel band here, another one up here, which is the bayonet lug cleaning rod. And like I said, on some of these they're threaded up here on the muzzle, and I believe that was for a blank firing device. This one is not threaded, but I've seen a lot of them that are. So I'm not quite too sure on that. And then, like I said, basically a nice old Mauser style rifle. And now we get to the interesting part, and this is where is the stock disc. Now, like I said, some of the earlier guns I've seen in collections, this disc will have unit markings on it. Okay, and I believe as these guns were put into reserve or surplus, these discs also give the condition of the bore diameter, and point of impact using the new ammunition. So we're going to take a closer look at this, and I'm going to sit down and explain to you what this disc says. Alright, now we're going to try to get the camera angled and that, take a look at this disc. There's 3 sections on this disc. Like I said, if you got one that just has numbers and letters, that's a unit marking. These here were probably put on there as the armors redid them, and then they were probably phased out of service or whatever. So if you have one with the 3 sections, it's bore measurements. I've never seen the other type. I've always seen them like this. So here we go. Now, this large section here, okay, is your bore diameter. And you have 6.46 and then 6.51. And how this works, a series of numbers behind this, you would, whatever's stamped, you would replace the last digit with that number. So if this was stamped with a 9, it would be 6.49 instead of 6 for your, and that's in millimeters, for your bore diameter. This is marked 0. So what that means is the bore, because you're looking here, it's 6.51, and then the next mark would be 2. So that means this changes to 6.50 is what the bore diameter, supposedly according to this disc, is for this rifle. That's how that works. It's an odd one. 0, so it's 6.50 is the bore diameter. Now this little small pie-shaped wedge here has 1, 2, and 3. Now depending on who or what reference you're going by, some people say that if there's no 1, there's no wear, or if there's no mark whatsoever, there's no wear in the barrel. 1, they say, one reference says 1 means that there's wear or some rust. 2 says there's pitting in the grooves, or rust or pitting, and 3 is there's pitting and rust in the whole bore. I don't believe that's correct. There's a guy called the Dutchman, and he says basically, and he's a European guy, I guess, over there from somewhere in one of the Scandinavian countries, and he says what this means is the Swedish military had real strict standards for their rifles. It's a measurement of bore wear. Now this gun was made in 1909, so over 100 years ago, so there's going to be some wear on the bore. 1, he says, means there's some wear to the bore. 2 is not as good as a 1. And then 3, it's kind of worn. And if you're getting worn to where you're in a 3, usually when they're marked 3, the Swedes will pull the gun out of service as being worn out. I go with that because this bore is clean. There's no rust. There's no pitting. Nothing. Okay, so 2 means there must be some wear. How wear is measured, if you ever see my videos where I use a gauge pen and put it in a barrel of the different sizes, I did it with the Mosin Nagant things. Barrels will get worn after shooting thousands and thousands of rounds of ammo. So I believe what that is. So even as a 2, that means there's some wear in here, but the bore is quite excellent on it, and we'll find out when we go and shoot. Now this last section, this word here means for a Spitzered bullet. The original bullet was a torpedo bullet, and now you have the boat tail, or I think it stands for boat tail. The boat tail Spitzer bullet. And overslang means what it's telling you here, and this is a unit of measurement, is STR. And if there's a number stamped in here using the Spire Point boat tail bullet at 100 meters, if there's like a 1 or something stamped here, that would mean the point of aim of this rifle shoots high by 0.1 meter at 100 meters. If it was 2, it would mean this gun shoots high point of impact 0.2 meters at 100 meters. And it's a way for you to gauge if your gun's shooting high or not. There's nothing here, so obviously this gun probably shoots right on. Again, I will not be able to prove it out till we shoot it. But that's basically your what the stock disc means, at least the best I can find from it. Even though when I was looking at the guns, the guy had one marked a 1, and I looked down the bore, he wanted a little more money for it, and it really didn't look much different than this one. Okay, so I went with the 2, and we'll see if it makes a difference or not. Alright, now we'll close this out. I'll look at a box of ammo that I have. Alright, I found this at a flea market. Somebody was selling out in the state, and I found this box of ammo. I'm assuming it's the Model 41. It's M94 is the old torpedo style bullet, and M41 is the newer ammunition that was made after, well, 1941. So that's the box. I believe the head stamp, this ammunition was made in '87. But there's your military issue ammo. Brass case, annealed fairly well, and that's the bullet. I'm not going to shoot these. I may pull one of these apart and examine the bullet when we get into reloading and try to see if I can replicate what they used. Yeah, '87 is when this was made. And see if I can match this up with a commercial bullet that is close to the shape of it. But that's the M41 ammo, and that I believe is a 140 grain Spire Point bullet with a bolt tail. Originally it was a sniping ammo, and I don't have the M94 ammo, which is the more like the torpedo style bullet, be longer, rounder nose. But that's it for the ammo. Okay, that's the Swedish Model 96 Mauser rifle, and of course we will be working with it when we get into reloading and other things and proving out all these different features on it.